Like and subscribe right now, or this will be in your bed tonight.
Hello everyone, welcome back to ProRevenge. You're watching iRead'em, the only channel you need for your ProRevenge needs. Before we start, please click like, subscribe and the bell icon for more videos. Subscribing is free and you can always unsubscribe. Thanks.
Please leave a comment about what you think of the new text-to-speech voice, as not many did on the last video. Thanks. The long game. TLDR, don't be a shit, and you won't have to deal with shit. This is a long story, so settle back and relax. I love this sub, and I have taken to asking friends about great revenge stories. This one comes from my boss, who lives in the small town where it occurred. To set the stage, many decades ago, Barney and Betty immigrated from Europe and bought a farm. A few years later they had kids, and sponsored Wilma from the old country as a nanny. She met Fred, a local boy, fell in love and got married. Wilma stayed on as the nanny, and Fred worked as a farm hand. Their kids and Barney and Betty's kids grew up together, and it was pretty much a big, blended family. Years go by, and Barney and Betty decide to sell the farm fields to Farmer Frank, but kept the land the house was on. They made enough off the sale to build a nice, new house, and rezoned the property lines. They broke the lot up into two parcels, one for the new house, and one for the existing house, which they gifted to Fred and Wilma as a recognition of their years of dedicated and loving service. Both houses shared a well and a septic field. More time went by. Barney and Betty passed away, and their house was inherited by their son, Bam Bam. Fred also passed away, and Wilma stayed in the house. She was an angel. Everyone in the town knew and loved her. She was like the town's grandmother. She was active in the church, and liked nothing more than crocheting booties for anyone in town that had a baby. Sadly, Wilma passed away too, and her house was inherited by her daughter, Pebbles. She was well established in a nearby metropolitan city, and made the decision to sell the house. And so it begins. To give you a better idea of the setup, here is a rough diagram. The parcel for sale is the yellow bit, which backs onto protected park land, and is bordered by Bam Bam's land, and Farmer Frank's fields. It was purchased by a builder from the city, which we'll call Dick. The name suits him. He wanted it as a country getaway, as he already had a place in the city. He got approval to improve the place, and his plans were to convert the barn into a multi-car garage with a man cave and an apartment in what was the loft. He started by tearing down the house, with plans to replace it with a bigger, more modern house. The house was torn down, and the new build was started. The lower part of the yellow represents a very narrow driveway. Between that driveway and Farmer Frank's field was a drainage culvert. So the contractors started parking their vehicles on Bam Bam's lot. Bam Bam asked the contractors not to do it, but they didn't stop, so he approached Dick, and the conversation didn't go well. Dick was an entitled big shot, dealing with what he thought was a country bumpkin. To give you an idea, Dick once went to the local diner, and asked for the wine list. He was aggressive and disrespectful, and this pretty much set the tone for all future interactions. Bam Bam had enough. These contractor trucks were tearing up his ground, so one weekend, he built a fence along the border between his house and Dick's. It wasn't a complicated fence. He just got a buddy with a post hole digger on his bobcat, sunk posts, and strung planks between them. This caused no end of trouble with the build. There was no room to park in the yellow for the contractors without getting in each other's way, and they couldn't park in the driveway, which was only wide enough for one vehicle at a time. Contractors were pissed off. They had a long walk from the road to the build site, and had to carry tools and equipment back and forth, either that, or take turns dropping materials, waiting hours for the carpenters to finish unloading the lumber so that the plumbers could unload the pipes. Dick was furious, and came stomping over to Bam Bam demanding that he dismantle the fence. Bam Bam told him to go to hell. Then a day later, Bam Bam saw that someone had removed some of the fence and the contractor trucks were back on his land. Okay, thought Bam Bam. Let's play. The following weekend Bam Bam irrigated the area where the contractors were parking. irrigated it long and continuously. He probably had to get a water delivery to make it happen, as the well had a limited capacity. On Monday, the first contractor to arrive turned off Dick's driveway to go through the fence, and immediately sank up to his axles in mud. Did I mention that Bam Bam owned the local service station, and knew every tow truck company within 100 miles? As it turned out, everyone they called was too busy to pull the truck out, and they had to call a tow truck from the city, almost 2 hours away. You can see how the relationship between Bam Bam and Dick became somewhat less than neighborly. Time went by, and Dick's house was completed. It was a low-maintenance setup, with interlocking brick over the compound, tall hedges separating Dick from Bam Bam. They kept out of each other's way, but they certainly weren't pals. Dick's kids would come up on the weekend and have a party now and then, but Bam Bam put up with it. One issue that arose was when Dick decided to fill the small swimming pool that he had installed. This drew the well dry, and caused some sand to be pulled into the water treatment equipment. When Bam Bam approached Dick about the cost of the repair, via email, Dick basically replied that it was Bam Bam's problem. The same when the septic holding tank needed to be pumped. Bam Bam offered to split the cost of the pumping, and Dick refused to part with a dime. Years passed, and Dick decided to list the house for sale. That's when Bam Bam made his move. He cut the water and capped the septic line leading from Dick's house. Then he informed the real estate agent of what he had done. Well, that induced a thunderstorm, for sure. There's no way Dick could sell a house that had no water, or any way to dispose of waste. He couldn't build a septic field on his property, it was too small. He approached Farmer Frank to buy some of his land, but was rebuffed. His only option would have been to install a septic holding tank, but the only place to put it would have been right in the middle of his compound, and septic tanks can be aromatic. It would also have meant removing the in-ground pool. Dick tried to argue in court that he was entitled to access to the well water and the septic field, but Bam Bam won, arguing that the Wilma and Fred were given water and septic as a courtesy, and that there was no contractual obligation to provide Dick either well water or septic access. There was nothing in the deed to Wilma and Fred that could be grandfathered in, and Dick's emails refusing to pay for maintenance to either system was the nail in the coffin. The property sat vacant and unusable for months. The price dropped through the floor, and the few people that expressed an interest in the property approached Bam Bam with varying offers of cash to restore service. Bam Bam declined. No offers were made to Dick for the house. Finally, Dick did receive an offer from a numbered corporation, an offer that was about a quarter of the asking price. As is, with a statement that the buyer was aware that there was no water or septic service to the property. Without much choice, Dick accepted the offer. And that's how Bam Bam bought himself a beautiful, modern country home, at a steal of a price. He reattached the water and septic in an afternoon, and moved his furniture down the driveway. He rented his old house out, for extra money, and had the numbered company negotiate with himself, for an arrangement for perpetual use of the well and septic, thereby jacking the value of the house by a factor of 4. Later, if he decides to sell it, he'll be making a massive profit. Bam Bam now enjoys a country paradise, and is the social king of the hill in his town. All because Dick decided to be a dick. Track me? Sure, I will comply, but not easy. I am not a native English speaker, so please excuse all the grammatical and spelling errors. Also mobile sir. So my former workplace is trying to get a hold of me, about 1.5 years after I quit. They gave me a job offer that turned out to be a whole other job. Bad for them. It seems that they have a problem with Skatteverket, the Swedish IRS. It all started one day when the company told me they were installing GNSS tracking in our vehicles. They blamed Skatteverket, wanting to know that we did not use them when of the clock. Well, that's kinda true, but in fact Skatteverket only wanted to know if we did, and if so how much. When I pointed this out to my boss, he went off on an angry monologue. Starting that us low-level workers can't be trusted, and finishing with that all we did was trifle away per work hours. so the statement from the company that they had no intent to follow us in real time was bullshit. The problem for the company was that our union had already banned the practice of following us in real time, with a few exceptions. The tracking device installed was easy to Google and thereby even easier to figure out how to manipulate. The biggest concern was it was tamper-proof. So no on opening it up. Well, since it used GPS/GLONASS as the only source for positioning, there was a simple bypass. After speaking to an old colleague of mine from the military, I ordered an antenna, $150, a Raspberry Pi, got my former colleague to find a good software, and created a .gpx with a track going on every road in Malta. Thereafter I set the device to start via the 12V in the car and to simply tell the shielded tracker that I was driving around in Malta. The effect didn't take long to show. After a week the boss told me my vehicle needed service. It did not. I knew when service was due. Another week goes by and it suddenly needs something else, can't remember. Both times they needed the car to go to another city, even thought our regular service station was in our town. After a month I got another car. The company blamed it on something with the lease. After that they didn't say anything at all to me about cars or anything else until the day I quit. Last day there, when dropping of my last things, the boss straight out asked me what I had done since everyone else's trackers seemed to work properly. I told him I had no idea what he was talking about, went outside and laughed my ass off. Leaving the premise I meet a coworker who had always been really nice to me, so for about 2 boxes of SNES he got the setup from me. Until today I thought this would be a petty revenge on a company that tried to illegally follow my whereabouts. But apparently they had sent in our tracks to Scataverket. And well, they had some questions. Either the record were lies and they needed to go over all the records from the company, or they had to get all the paperwork for doing business abroad in before July. The rumor spread real quick and now the union also have a couple of questions, somewhere along the lines, so you can track your workers in real time? We haven't signed off on this. In conclusion, had they only been upfront and told everyone what they were planning, and got the union in on it, I wouldn't have cared. Now they chose the other way of doing things.
Thank you all for watching. Please make sure that you like, subscribe and click the bell icon for more videos. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, then please leave a comment. I have lots of other videos on my channel too, so please go check them out if you want.